giving you a voice,
making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun. But you know what, guys? We've got a lot of good questions in chat. This is probably the most active and passionate chat's been for a while. So let's just kind of hit these one at a time. From Black Ice Skier, that sounds dangerous. As a longtime Bex rep and supporter and advocate in New Jersey, I'm disappointed to hear FIRST pushing us further and further out of the circle. I used to compete in FRC until it got way too political and less about the engineering and robotics. It's not really a question, but thanks for your opinion, Black Ice Skier, and I think there's others who feel the same way that you do. From Micklast _, do you think some judges are going to actively look down upon certain programs used by teams in comparison to another non-FIRST program? Garrison.
I mean,
I hope not. I think that will happen at certain events. I've been with some pretty inexperienced judges. Not all the judges are, us. They're longtime FRC people. So I think certain judges are going to look at that and go, yeah, that's exactly what's going to happen. But I think we
Alan,
do have. Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I think that's where we're at. There are going to be judges who do it, and you can't let it get you down and keep going out and helping students do cool stuff.
Our next question on this topic from Raw1236. I was always under the impression that EI was about spreading STEM in general, and that Chairman's was about spreading FIRST. I don't understand what's new completely. So, well, I mean, the first thing is that EI was not necessarily about spreading STEM, because it's not called STEM inspiration, it's called engineering inspiration. So it was specific to engineering. Alan or Garrison, do you want your thoughts on the two awards and what the differences are and what the differences should be?
I mean, this, like we said, it's been a somewhat slow change to where it has been a push to spreading FIRST. It's been more questions and things, but the original award was given for teams who were forming a partnership largely between a corporation and a school, right? That's how FIRST started. If you go back and watch video from like 1992, you see robots being built at Xerox with students coming in and kind of watching. That was the history of where we started this thing. And the award has changed over time to where that's not what it is, and they clearly stated that today, or this week.
Yeah, I'm basically the same. I'm not gonna pretend to understand the EI award in its current state, because I actually think it's more valuable to chairmen like Alan, and appreciate, like, when I was on it, and still has been trying to win it at a regional. They have never done that. I have never done that. We've won it twice at the World Championship, but yeah, clearly I don't understand what that award is.
Yeah,
I mean, like, literally, the actual use of the word literally, EI is more valuable than Chairman's because you get $4,000 for it in the US. So, like, that's the thing. Is it five?
You get, your championship registration's paid for.
Oh, okay. I thought it was like a regional registration. Yeah, $5,000 or like 6,500 Canadian if a Canadian team were to somehow win that. Are the current qualifications for the Chairman's Award fair for newer teams? How many go to events year after year in the same Chairman's winner cycle between the same few teams? Well, I mean, like, how many teams go to the same FRC events and the same like 254 still wins the regionals? Like, yeah, good teams are going to keep winning things. Like,
right, and that's also region specific too, because there are events where you can go look through their history and they've never given a repeat award before.
Yeah, it's also if you look at that, it's also built into the award, right? It's about showing consistency and growth over 5 years. So yeah, it is disadvantageous. It's disadvantageous to newer teams because that's the way the award is built.
But I will say, and every year there's new teams who break in. So like, it's definitely not impossible. It's difficult the same way that it's difficult to beat 254 or 148 at a regional. Like it's like 20.
And young teams who say they don't want to do it because they're not old enough yet. Like, there are teams who have won it their second year, so it is possible.
Well, and also that's hilarious to me because, like, do we have teams who are just like, oh yeah, well, it's almost impossible to win with our robots, so we're not going to try. Like, no, these teams still come out and try. So like, I just think that's like a weak excuse. But like, just say that it's like a lot of work and you'd rather focus on your robot. That's a legitimate excuse. Another one from Micklast _. This explicitly promotes FIRST adding teams. Will this hurt chairman's teams who cannot realistically add more teams, like 4125, who basically runs their county on robotics and can't exactly expand in terms of creating more teams? I mean, no, I don't think so, because what I didn't get from this change was I didn't get that they were putting more of an emphasis on starting teams. Like, that wording didn't get emphasized. It was just about FIRST programs specifically. So I think if you're in an area where you're already saturated with FIRST teams, I think as long as you are doing outreach of some sort that's involving FIRST in ways, or like everyone always talks about this nonsense about the importance of trying to start more teams and teams. But like, to me, the importance is trying to get more people involved and trying to get more diverse audiences. Yeah. Like everyone's like, oh, like I can't wait till like there's a FIRST team in every high school. I'm like, well, that's great. Like, so, you know, have a high school of 2,000 kids and like there's 20 kids on the FIRST team. That's just like 1% of the population that we've affected. And if like you have like the 20 nerdiest kids in the school, guess what? The other 1,980 kids are want nothing to do with this. And it actually is hurting our mission of culture change. So like, you know, when a lot of people laugh about like diversity being a strategic pillar of FIRST, like the reason diversity needs to be a strategic pillar is that's how you actually change culture. So sorry, I'm ranting on. That's my diversity rant. Any of you guys have anything to say on that?
I agree with everything you said there. Yeah, I mean, FIRST does put a lot of emphasis on spreading, you know, the FIRST mission within your team and stuff. And I still think that is sort of the number one most important part of chairman, is getting the people on your team inspired, growing your team, being sustainable as your own team before you go out there and try and start a whole bunch of other teams. I don't think that's changed really at all. I still think that's extremely important. And yeah, I agree that spreading it with, you know, the diversity, the spreading within your school, and then with your community outside of that, the comment on, you know, being in your own county, the top chairman's teams I see are still the ones that, regardless of how many teams they start or whatever, are still the ones that get really creative with how they spread their mission and go out there and like get their name and stuff. You know, we talked about Columbus Space Program and the weather balloons. That's awesome. You know, the best teams will always do something that makes you kind of sit back in your chair and wow, like that's the difference. You know, you can tell me you started 100 FLL teams and I'm going to just kind of sit there and nod. If you come up with a real cool idea on how to do STEM, that's what's going to make me and every other judge, you know, in FRC really kind of perk up. That's still the exciting part. I
mean, hopefully that is what the judges still want to see.
I hope so.
Oh man, I'm gonna rage at this one. There seems to be two types of teams: the competitive teams and the chairman teams. Generally, most teams focus on one or the other. You know what? 11-14, we just weren't really that competitive, I guess. We were just a chairman's team. 2056, their robots are nothing. They're a chairman's team. Like
5038.
Yeah, this is the wrong crowd to try and push that message.
Hey, let me make my alliance of Hall of Fame teams, and like, you know, like let's just.
How many chairman's awards are to IRI every year? Like, come on, like.
Yeah, like so. Like, here's the real deal. If you want the real tea, there's a high correlation between top chairman's teams and top robot teams, because you need money to be a top robot team and you need money to be a top chairman's team. So and if you want the real tea, there you go.
I think you also need a lot of passion to be both too. And you need to have people who care a lot about your program.
Well, and I mean, like, people who are good at winning are good at winning. And so, like, why is Chazzy Champ such a well-run off-season event? Pat Fairbank was talking about this. I was saying that why is Chazzy Champ such a good off-season event? Pat Fairbank talked about this the last time he was on the show with us, when he said that all the efforts that they put towards the regional season and making sure they win every match and every little detail, they put towards running their off-season event. Successful people are successful at lots of things. Not to do with chairmans, but here is like the other side of things. What is the solution to improving the lack of available event spots versus the number of teams?
More events?
Yeah, more districts. Like, that's part of it too. Getting cheaper events that you can hold in more places.
And I guess get a little bit deeper into that, one of the biggest problems you always see with people, you know, especially when they're getting started districts and stuff, is the availability of volunteers. That's sort of always the first thing. People can find venues and stuff I say reasonably easy. It's hard sometimes, but that's not the biggest obstacle. I think the human manpower and capital there is sort of the biggest issue. So, and I don't know, I might be wrong, but it seems like getting trained key volunteers into positions where they can actually do stuff.
See, I disagree with you on that one because I think the key volunteer thing is overblown. I think a lot of, and I'm a key volunteer, but I think a lot of key volunteers overinflate their sense of self-importance, to be completely honest. And
oh yeah, you don't have to be. You don't. I'm not saying every key volunteer has to be trained. I've been a game announcer and MC in first. I was never trained. I showed up as an inspector and started doing it accidentally.
FTA is like this like killer hard job that requires a lot of people skills and whatever, but the rest of the key volunteer positions can, you can find people to fill them. But I think the biggest obstacle to growth is it still costs $150,000 to run some regionals, and like that's unreasonable. And like I think it needs to be a different cost structure. And I mean, I'm guaranteed there's someone from Michigan in the chat can tell me what it costs to run a Michigan district event, but I've heard that some Michigan district events run for as little as like $5,000, and so like come on. Someone just said, are you saying there isn't a shortage of key volunteers? I disagree on that. No, I'm not saying there's not a shortage of key volunteers. I'm just saying that it is easier to train the 5 key volunteers you need for an event as opposed to coming up with $150,000. Right. Like if the event cost was like $50,000, you giving me $100,000 to train 5 key volunteers, trust me, I get you some 5 pretty good key volunteers. So like that's the difference. Like obviously there's a shortage, and I think, but I mean, I would be more than happy to throw some of the money that is wasted on these events at the training piece, or even paying people.
And part of it, as you get more events, you get more people trained and things too, just because they have to step up and fill those roles. Like that's how Texas partly did it, was we had a lot of off seasons, so we had a lot of people fill those roles so we could get people trained for districts. Yeah, so the chat has responded quickly as I thought they would. They're saying that some district events in Michigan run between 5 and 20,000. 5,000, some are saying 15,000, some are saying 10,000, and others are saying that 150,000 is actually cheap for a regional in New York. Yeah, I mean, we know how much it costs to run an off season. Like the whole budget for TRI is somewhere around 10K. Like it's not crazy.
Yeah. Thank you to all of our co-executive producers, keeping fun loud, live, and independent. Pledge your support at patreon.com/first updates now.